job is definitely not worth $11,500 a year.
Hey Ghost Heads, it's Adam from Channeling Spirits, and today we will investigate the largely unknown history of Winston Zeddemore, portrayed by the one, the only, Ernie Hudson. As we uncover his detailed past, we will be employing a variety of media, some of which can be considered canon, in addition to works which exist in a tangent timeline, but will help us give an all-encompassing look at his background. It should be known that this video is not being endorsed as the official history of Winston. Instead, we're going to be giving the oft-overlooked character the dedicated study he deserves, which usually was left on the cutting room floor. To keep things simple, we're going to be using Ernie Hudson's actual birthday, as no official source has ever given a date for Winston's birth.
Happy birthday.
Happy birthday.
Thank you.
Using this, we can uncover the unforgotten account of the Ghostbusters' everyman. The first portion of the chronological information about the Zeddemore family tree comes from a deleted ending in Ghostbusters II in the November 27, 1988 draft. While discussing with the other Busters about their families coming to America,
Good morning, my neighbors! Hey, fuck you! Yes! Yes! Fuck you too!
Winston explains his ancestors were brought there against their will, aboard slave ships. They arrived in Charleston Harbor, South Carolina. Though no source definitively mentions Winston's place of birth, there is evidence suggesting the Zeddemores may have not strayed from South Carolina. In the August 5, 1983 draft of Ghostbusters, it is actually Winston who conjures up the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man.
Oh, shit!
He mentions the mascot was on all the packages his family used to buy when he was a kid in North Carolina. It was there where he roasted them at his grandfather's smokehouse fire. Whether he was born in North Carolina or not, Winston came into this world on December 15, 1945. The novelization, Ghostbusters the Supernatural Spectacular, mentions he was raised in a strict Baptist family,
And I love Jesus' style.
with several younger brothers and sisters. It is worth noting that on April 15, 1947, Jackie Robinson played his first game with the Brooklyn Dodgers. In the IDW Ghostbusters comic series, it mentions Winston also played baseball as well. In the Real Ghostbusters, Winston talks more about his African ancestry.
Well, my grandmother used to tell me stories from Africa and Puerto Rico about voodoo and Santeria, but I never believed this stuff.
It is important to note that even at a young age, Winston may have been raised a Christian household, but he was incredibly skeptical about the supernatural phenomena. By 1955, Jackie Robinson played and contributed to the Dodgers winning the World Series championship. It is possible this was the inspiration for Winston looking to play professional baseball.
I always wanted to play in the majors.
Like Peter Venkman, Winston had a fascination with trains at a young age. At some point, his aunt brought him to see the original Penn Station in New York, which would have been before 1963 when it was demolished.
Wow, my aunt brought me here when I was a kid.
We also know Winston has an Uncle Raymond.
Hey, Winston, it's your Uncle Raymond. I'm coming to town and I want to see you. Break out the food, turn on the TV. I'll call you later.
Winston's father, Edward Big Ed Zeddemore, fostered young Winston's interest in trains. In the first draft of the episode Slimer's Streak, Winston mentions him as they put a train together. Mechanically oriented,
Like my dad always said, we learn by doing.
Big Ed was a construction foreman, and Winston may have longed to be more than that. He admits at one point he also worked in construction,
I'll do it. I used to be a construction worker.
most likely for his father. It's possible that these aspirations caused a rift, which was evident when they were eventually reunited in Brooklyn during the Real Ghostbusters. The divide might have also resulted when he separated from Lucille, Winston's mother. Though not explicitly stated in any media, Ed makes no mention of still being with Lucille, and Winston states she lives in New Jersey.
Can I say hi to my mom in New Jersey?
Lucille is never introduced in the Real Ghostbusters, but the Supernatural Spectacular reveals her name. She allows Winston to live with her briefly before being hired by the Ghostbusters. Whatever reason Ed and Winston grew distant, we do know that Winston went to college in 1963, though it's uncertain what subject he was pursuing. However, it might have been while he was still on good terms with his father in Brooklyn because he had put himself through college working at Coney Island.
No consolation I ever saw. And I used to tell fortunes on Coney Island.
Is that right? Did you wear a turban?
No, man. A red velvet cape with moons. It was plush.
Though at this point, Winston still did not believe in the paranormal. 4 years later, he would start working on his doctorate, possibly in history, archaeology, or Egyptology.
Well, here we are. The Egypt exhibit. I practically lived here while I was working on my doctorate.
The Matty Collector card back of Winston's figure mentions he was a former cab driver, possibly as a way to supplement his income as he pursued his doctorate in Manhattan. Given he is never mentioned as Dr. Zeddemore, it seems he did not complete his doctorate, possibly settling for a master's degree. Several drafts mention an extensive resume during his interview, though this career is inconsistent among sources. Dependent upon media, Winston enlisted in either the Air Force or the Marines. He probably entered boot camp in 1970.
Oh, I can't remember having this much fun. Can you, Winston?
Yeah, boot camp.
The August 5th, 1983 draft stated he spent 5 years in the Air Force Police, becoming a captain assigned to administrative perimeter security at Reese Strategic Air Command Base. Ghostbusters, the Supernatural Spectacular, echoed this, saying he went to the Strategic Air Force Command ECM school. The Real Ghostbusters also mentions,
I wanted to go into space since I was a little kid.
which may have been why he pursued the Air Force. However, the other sources say he joined the Marines, an act Ernie Hudson did after high school, but was dismissed after 3 months due to asthma. In the official guide for Ghostbusters the video game, Winston notes he is an ex-Marine, as does the Matty Collector cardback. However, the biggest evidence comes from the IDW comic series that goes into great detail that Winston enlisted at the Marine Corps Recruitment Depot, Parris Island in South Carolina. He reported to Staff Sergeant Adams, which he would later entrap. There has been some conjecture considering the timing of his enlistment that he may have fought in the Vietnam War in 1971. We also know that Winston was a practitioner of the martial arts, but again, sources vary. In the August 5th, 1983 Ghostbusters draft, Winston explains that he is a 15th degree black belt in Wing Chun boxing. However, most Wing Chun schools have no ranks or degrees. A later draft in October 7th changes it to a black belt in karate. The Supernatural Spectacular and Matty Collector cardback also confirmed this accomplishment. Winston's other achievements include being a small arms expert, a qualified award-winning weapons handler, and he designed an electronic barrier system for sentry alarms. At some point, he would have been transferred to Pearl Harbor as the VP Tactics and Training at Pacific Headquarters. He was stationed there until it closed down in mid-September 1984. The Supernatural Spectacular notes he had been living with his mother Lucille in New Jersey for a month before seeing the Help Wanted ad.
If there's a steady paycheck in it, I'll believe anything you say.
Despite that, Winston would remain a skeptic until experiencing himself.
Dr. Spengler, I didn't believe in all this ghost stuff either until I saw it.
I have seen shit that'll turn you white.
Despite his initial uncertainty, his belief would finally pay off and allow him to help save the city.
I love this town!
So there you have it. Winston Zeddemore's largely unknown history finally explored. If you enjoyed this video and think we deserve it,
You've earned it.
please subscribe. I'm Adam with Channeling Spirits, and thank you for watching.